Right, first time I became aware of this place was I used to work in care, and we used to sometimes in certain days we'd drop service users off at day centre, and there'd be like about an hour and a half gap in between where it weren't really worth going back, so we'd come for a scarf. And me and one of my mates used to get a Burger King or pork sandwich, and we'd park down in a lay-by and wait till it sort of pick up time. I've always meant to come and have a proper look, because there's some fascinating history attached to it. As you can see, there's quite a bit of subsidence now. Quite a lot of these gravestones look like they're sort of bending over at funny angles. And in Victorian cemeteries, it was customary for the first person who was buried there to be considered the guardian of the cemetery. And in this case, it was a 2-year-old Anne-Marie Marsden who was the first person buried. And some people believe that a ghost still haunts the area. So I think this place, like I say, last person buried nearly 60 years ago. And then it gradually got left to just decay, really. But local people have done it. I think there's a trust being set up, people who've done it up. It does look nice. I mean, there's a lot of the stones, it's sort of been left. But you can tell people have been clearing out between the gravestones. There's the odd one where there's still some sort of remembrances, and where people are often obviously still visiting. But there's quite a few Commonwealth War graves in here, I think. See, this is one we've got Private J.S. Redfern, Northumberland Fusiliers. There's his service number. Another notable person who's buried here is George Lambert, who won a Victoria Cross for his actions in the Crimean War. He was also did a lot in the war in India, apparently. But he was an Irishman who joined the British Army, and he's buried in Sheffield after dying at Hillsborough Barracks. Yeah, so for ages it was just completely overgrown and nobody visited. I mean, and today it's Sunday, there's a load of kids down at bottom playing, not doing any harm, do you know what I mean? I suppose some people think it's disrespectful, but in a way I think it's quite nice that there's like young people still using this space, who are probably, the relatives of people who are buried in here. The scale of this is really big. You keep thinking you've come to the end, and then there's like hidden stones, and some parts haven't been recovered quite as well as others. Up over that bridge there's a big mountain bike trail and stuff. It goes up to Parkwood Springs. You can get up to where the old ski village used to be, which is something else I want to go and have a look at. A lot of these places the family would have had a plot, like, so with this you've got a couple of the grandparents, and then Private William Smount, who died in France in 1916, which is around the time when I've been doing family history. We've got a couple of relatives, I suppose, like any family, do you know what I mean? At that time, it's such a big thing. I can't really think of a nicer spot and more peaceful. It's really striking how many of these people died in the 30s and 40s of natural causes. I suppose, like, you got a bad infection in them days and you were screwed, really, weren't you? Not like now when, NHS and everything. This one's a whole family of the Greens, ranging from, it's really sad, like a couple of infants, 1 month, 20, 30, 1 year and 11 months. The oldest 45 years. Some absolutely amazing stonemasonry on the headstones. A lot of wildlife noise. I mean, although it's obviously a place of remembrance for human death, there's a hell of a lot of life. You can hear buzzards soaring above. I can't quite see them, but a lot of crow activity. Squirrels hiding acorns, all sorts, it's really, if you come and sat here and quiet for a bit, there's loads of stuff, loads of nature. It's a good example of where ivy's being cleared from the back of that. You can see the marks where people have cleared it off. I think this is like a central point. It's like a bit of a, might be a memorial down here, I think. Right, so this is where the chapel would have been. Wardsend Cemetery opened in 1860. However, the mortuary chapel which used to stand here was built later, replacing a marquee which had been erected as a temporary measure. Now, there is a really creepy story about this chapel. Right, the cemetery was actually the location of a massive riot from people in Hillsborough, because it became apparent that bodies were being taken from the cemetery and sold to Sheffield Medical School, and somebody found a pit which all the remains had been thrown into. Now, initially, the public blamed the sexton, who was Isaac Howard, and went and burnt his house down in Hillsborough, and also the Reverend Philip Livesey was initially blamed, but then it turned out they were exonerated. They hadn't actually had any part in it, but they were guilty of reusing graves to save space. So they did get some sort of, they got fined, but nobody ever found out who was stealing the bodies. But it was hundreds of people, apparently, being used for dissections by Sheffield Medical School. So that's where, roughly where these stones are, is where the chapel would have been. You can see some of it, some of the foundations. And we've so while this isn't a memorial, a war memorial for the First World War, it's a stone is erected for the officers, non-commissioned officers and men of the 14th Depot Battalion. There's a big garrison that contained thousands of people. So I imagine some of these people would have died from cholera or the floods or general ill health while serving at that garrison. Some of the stone to the original chapel. I think the rest of it's gone now though. Right, I'm going to give this disused cemetery 10 out of 10. It's got everything you could possibly want. Spooky atmosphere, ghoulish stories, chilled surroundings. Now this is the start of the barracks, Hillsborough Barracks, which is now Morrison's. But it's a massive place, a big parade square in the middle.